Have you ever wanted to join a corner together and put a 45-degree angle on something and find that it's very difficult to clamp and hold together? I've got a joint that's going to make it easy for you to clamp on. It's going to look like a 45 on the outside, but it's going to be a 45 with a miter and a rabbet joint. I'm going to walk you through this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the saw to 15 degrees. So come over here, we'll look at this. I'm going to take the saw and turn it to 15 degrees. Lock that in place. I'm going to adjust the height of the table saw blade to match the thickness of the plywood. So if I set this on top of the blade, I'm going to lower the blade till that's the same height as my plywood. So you'll be able to see that, and we'll be able to feel that. So it looks like the same height there. Now I'm going to move the fence. I put a sacrificial auxiliary fence on the fence so I don't actually cut into my fence. I'm going to move that so it's just about touching. Not quite. I'm going to leave a little bit there. You don't want it exactly touching. And I'm going to run this piece standing up. That's why I put a taller fence on here, this auxiliary fence, so I don't cut into my good fence, and to give me a little bit more room to help hold this. So I'm going to turn the dust collector on. A little bit of an edge there. I could go a little bit closer, but I like to have not a really sharp edge there so it doesn't get damaged. So I'm going to leave that where it's at. While the saw is still set in this position, I'm going to take this away and I'm going to cut that same 15-degree angle on the corresponding piece. This one I can raise the blade up a little bit to make sure I cut through it, still leaving it at the 15 degrees. Now I'm going to turn the saw back to 90. Take this piece, so I've got 15 degree and I've got a 15 degree, and then these two pieces are going to join together once I cut this rabbet. I'm going to cut a rabbet joint in here and pull this part out. So I'm going to take the saw, I'm going to turn this back to 90, and I'm going to raise the blade so it's even with the height of that. So I'll take that. I'll go back to 90. And then from this side, I'm going to raise the blade, lower the blade, so it's even with the height of that. Now I'm going to slide the fence over, and I want to set the fence from the fence to the outside, the left side of the blade, the thickness of the plywood that I'm cutting. So I'm going to set this and rest this right on top of the blade, and I'm going to line that up so that that's perfectly lined up with that to help line this rabbet up. And I'm going to push this piece through. This piece is going to get stuck between the fence and the blade, so you got to be careful. It doesn't get pinched in there, get thrown back. But I like to use this this push stick because it will actually straddle the blade and help push that scrap piece through. So we'll see if we can get a couple angles of that. So I'm going to turn the dust collector back on. Now what that's done is it's created a rabbet, this piece, and this piece is going to join together, And now you have a miter rabbet joint, something that's easy to clamp, and it looks like a 45-degree angle from the outside. Where a miter joint is impossible to clamp because they slip and slide. This one gives you a positive place for it to fit in, and it's a nice looking joint when you're done. What I like about this joint is that you can just put a bead of glue on there, clamp it together. It doesn't slip and slide like a normal miter might do. Gives it a nice positive place to glue it together. So I call it a miter rabbet joint. This push stick helps get the scrap piece that's stuck between the fence and the blade out, so it works well. And it goes over the blade and helps push the piece out as you're pushing it through so the piece doesn't kick back.